Yeah, we're on. Hello, Broke Artist Nation. Welcome to another week of meeting an amazing resource that could hopefully be of help to all of you on your journey as independent musicians. So, without further ado, I bring to you Steve Weatherby.
Hello.
Steve, hello.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Great. Thank you
Good.
for inviting me to participate.
Yeah, and thank you for coming to meet with me,
Of
taking
course.
time out of your day.
Anytime.
Sweet. So, if you want to start by telling everyone a little bit about how you got into the music industry and where it all started.
Sure. Where it all started, I guess we could go back to being a kid, just being a fan of music. I started playing in bands when I was approximately 16, I believe. And then I just realized I didn't have the talent that probably is required on that side of the business. So I knew I always wanted to work in music. So if I couldn't be a musician, then I always felt like I'd like to help musicians. So that started out. So I was a relatively late bloomer getting into the music business. I was in Ohio at the time. And back then, they really preferred you living in the locale of where you wanted to work. So
Right.
LA, New York, Nashville.
Right.
And I sent my resume to a friend who sent it to a friend who sent it to a friend who sent it to a friend. And somehow it made it to the head of HR at BMG. And she noticed on my resume nothing about my experience except for the fact that I was an Eagle Scout. And she found something nice about that. And she said if I would move to LA in 2 weeks, she would give me a job in the mailroom. I didn't even flinch or hesitate. I took that opportunity and just knew I had to get my foot in the door. And back then, what was great, BMG was one building, but it had like 10 different companies in it. So whether it was Wyndham Hill, BMG Music Publishing, RCA Records, LaFace, Loud, it were just all these entities. So
You were engulfed.
yeah,
You
by
you
every
moved to
side of
LA and you were here and you were
yeah, and
involved.
I think a lot of people might look down upon that position like a mailroom, but I looked at it as an opportunity to deliver mail to the 300 employees, executives within that building. And literally after a couple months, people were like, "Why are you delivering mail?" Not that that's not an important function of the business, but just more like
Yeah.
you have a college education. Like, what do you want to do? And I immediately got an opportunity to work with Bruce Floor and Ron Fair, who are A&R for RCA Records,
Okay.
and worked for them starting out as like A&R admin.
Got it.
Yeah, and then literally on my resume, and this was more on me because I got into the business side of music when I was like 27. So a little later than most. So I put a time limit, so every 2 years, if I didn't, find that there was room for growth or potential promotion, I would just move on. So if you look at my resume, literally every 2 years I changed jobs. But what was great about that, and kids, I don't always recommend this, but it's like
This is good. We always hear, what should we do? Here's something, what should we not do?
right.
A little honesty.
Well, there's a little bit of both. I guess it depends on what your path is. And for me, it's like I really didn't know what I wanted to do in the music business, but I wanted to learn everything about it. So I just kept taking these different jobs, like on different sides of the business, and I learned so much from A&R to publishing to, the creative side to royalties to licensing to mechanicals, all this stuff that to this day I still preach to people getting into the music business. It's like I don't care if you want to be president of a label or head of A&R or you want to be on the creative side. The more you know, the better off you will be. And the back admin office type of responsibilities, like a lot of people don't go to those jobs first.
Right.
And
Can Broke Artist Nation quote that?
please, absolutely. But it really is one of those scenarios where it's like knowledge is power, and the more you know, the better off you're going to be. And I think just doing that opened up a lot of doors for me. And even to this day, when I'm asked like what I know, it's like, well, I kind of know like A to Z. Like I know, exactly what happens on the admin side the second a song is written, all the way to the last penny of royalties is paid out.
Right, it's a full picture.
Yeah, and no matter where you sit in that sort of spectrum of responsibilities, like, you should always know what is before you and what comes after you.
Yeah.
In a major label world, generally, you sit in one job and you're a cog in the wheel, and they just want you to be there.
Yeah.
But I think for independence, it's extremely important to just try and learn as much as you can about the business, and then it'll just help you navigate
Right, knowing the process for independent musicians is essential.
Oh, yeah.
You can't be a successful independent musician that's making money without knowing the entire process.
Right. That's what I always say. It's like, at the very least, I don't expect you to know everything, but you should at least know where your money should come from.
Yep.
Because if you don't, you're just missing out on that revenue. And as we all know, with statute of limitations, like, you can only go back so far to collect that revenue. So if you had a song in year 2000, that's amazing, but we can't go back that far to collect that revenue. And that money gets black boxed and then prorated amongst the industry, so you lose that revenue.
And if you guys haven't checked out last week's video with Natalie Jacobs, that would go a little bit more into the black box and where your revenue is actually heading.
Right.
So go check that one out as well.
Yeah, and Natalie's great. So
Natalie's
kudos
amazing.
To Nash. Yeah.
So you came all this way, Steve. You've changed jobs, tenfold, and now you're here. You are doing multiple things, focusing heavily on publishing. Can you tell our broke artists a little bit about publishing and why they should care?
Of course. So initially in 2016, I started a company called, in 2010, I started a company called Sovereign Music. And we literally joked, do everything that people don't like doing. Like, all right, we had a catchphrase of like, embrace the suck. Because it's just like, if you become good at those tasks, then you become sort of like an expert in the field and people will always come to you. So we sold that business, and then I started a new company, just focusing more on just publishing administration, because I just really wanted to be well versed on that side of the business.
And was that the best?
Yeah, so this is the Best Music Company, which we started in 2019.
Got it.
So the Best Music Company is a global publishing administration company that I started with my partner, Jennifer Carey. Again, it started out as more of a friends and family scenario where we had a lot of really strong creative folks in our circles, and publishing was just never at the forefront of any of their minds. They wanted to be an artist first, create music, release music, and a lot of the admin stuff, such as publishing, is sometimes in the back of your mind, and you know that you have to deal with it sometime, but a lot of times you don't realize it's actually generating money or revenue for you while you're releasing music.
Yeah.
So, and again, going back to statute of limitations, if you don't focus on that revenue within 3 to 5 years, it ends up going to somebody else. So it's a very productive responsibility that can obviously enhance your financial situation, being an independent artist.
Right. And it all goes hand in hand, publishing, black box, copyright. So what exactly does the Best Music Company do in regards to publishing?
Yeah, so publishing, you have two sides. You have the writer side and you have the publisher side. You can look at it as 100% each, or a total of 200%, or 50-50, which equals 100%. So basically, we represent writers, independent writers who we help set up as independent publishers. We also work with established publishers, just the same. But basically, we ingest their songs, their catalogs. We register them with the societies around the world. We pitch for sync opportunities, film, TV, advertising, games, etc. And we collect those pennies, that people often forget about. So it's, it sounds like a relatively simple process, but when you're dealing with 200, however many countries there are these days, there's a lot of relationships that you have to create. There's a lot of work in delivering the catalogs and collecting those pennies. But what we found is the industry has, now technology that kind of helps sort of find some of those holes in the process that sort of existed before. Always room for us to kind of get better at this process. Metadata is still an issue for us. I'm sure everyone has addressed that, partially because there's still people manually entering information into systems or into emails. Anytime a human touches something, there's a potential for error. So, it just creates some quagmire. And it's like, if you have 50 artists all recording a song called Happy Birthday, how do you identify which happy birthday is yours and the revenue that you should be getting?
So what advice would you give to independent musicians that are not signed to the Best Music Company and don't work with you guys? What can they do on their own to remediate these,
First and foremost, 100%. Yeah, indeed. First and foremost, register with society. So if you are based in North America or United States, BMI, ASCAP, CSEC is now invitation only. So really, ASCAP, BMI are available to just sort of for you to choose from. But you should register as a writer, and my personal opinion is you should register as a publisher as well. So being independent, I always tell artists and writers and creatives, it's like hang on to your rights for as long as you can. So think independently, always be independently focused. Even if you want to be on a major label or a major publisher, when you start out, a lot of times those companies are not going to be interested because you hasn't generated enough activity, enough success, enough revenue for them to kind of take notice. Like there are a lot of people out there doing the same thing, that we want to do as far as creatives go. So it's like you're competing with a ton of people. So you have to sort of put the blinders on, not worry about everybody else, and just make sure like your responsibilities are buttoned up. And as an independent, there's a lot that goes on the artist side, but as a writer and a publisher, it's oftentimes a responsibility that's kind of forgotten or overlooked or kind of back of mind. But those pennies add up, and they add up fast. And sometimes you may not even know if your song is commercially released. Somebody might use it in Austria, China, Russia, etc., and then it's generating revenue. But if you're not registered with society, no one has any idea how to find you.
Yeah.
So, and they're not going to be aggressive in trying to find you just because of the volume of participants. So you kind of have to be the one that takes control of your own sort of destiny, if you will.
Got it. And last question for our broke artists. This is one that I'm just throwing in because I thought of it.
I love it.
But what would you say is the benefit of signing with a publisher? And you own the rights to your composition, you're the writer, but you want to give that 50% to a publisher. How are they going to help you? Yeah, right. How are they going to help you?
It's great, and that kind of goes like it applies both on the sound recording or master side as it does on the composition side, right? So my personal feeling is again, stay as independent for as long as you can, so you can own the rights to your assets, basically, whether it's a sound recording or whether it's a composition. Mm-hmm. I want to say, if you do decide to sign with a publisher, make sure that it's not just a land grab or a market share grab where they just want your catalog, but they've got 50,000, 50 million other catalogs similar to yours, and you're just kind of putting in a corner, and not actively working your catalog, right?
Got it.
So my feeling is if you believe in your relationship that is there and you feel like they're actually going to help your career, I'm okay with that. But I go back to my preference is to stay as independent for as long as possible. And not only is it just about the revenue, but it's about teaching you about the actual business, right?
Yep.
Like if you want to be a mechanic, you can drive a car all day long, but if you don't know how it works, you're never going to be able to fix it when it breaks down. In the music business, it's obviously not the best analogy, but as far as like identifying money, revenue, opportunities, if you know where those exist, why wouldn't you want to do that yourself to a certain extent instead of like just relying on somebody else to do it for you? And I find a lot of disappointment in this music business, in this industry is, whether it's your distributor or a label or a publisher, you're dependent or you're trying to be dependent on someone else to manage your career.
Right.
So no one is going to put as much effort into your career as you. Now, there's another side of it. If a publisher comes to you and says, I'm going to give you $50 million for your 5 songs, it's a different side of the story.
Yeah,
right?
that's a situation.
Yeah, because that's real money, right?
Yeah.
And if that can help sustain you and live, but if someone gives you $50,000 for an advance, you might be like, that's amazing. That's a ton of money. But that $50,000 will not last that long.
They're going to take it back everything that you do. Everything.
And that money, an advance is supposed to be like a prepayment of royalties, right? So that money that you would receive as royalties, that's supposed to help you live, like support, like pay your rent, pay your car, all that kind of stuff, so that you can write more songs and kind of grow your business. But if that money goes away and you've spent it and they're recouping it,
then the point was moot.
Yeah, and it's kind of like being in purgatory, right? Where it's like you can't get out of the contract because you're unrecouped. They're not paying attention to you because they didn't put in the energy to, get more activity for your catalog. And it becomes a really difficult situation. A lot of times you'll see artists, writers, creatives just quit because they've made, unfortunately, poor decisions.
It's a sad story, and it is one that Broke Artist Nation does not want to hear again for the 50,000th time.
Right.
So thank you so much, Steve, for meeting with me,
Very
for telling everyone a little bit about publishing and why it's important.
Yeah, and it is important, kids. So please pay attention, read. There's resources out there. There's books. Feel free to reach out to me directly. I'm more than happy to just answer questions because I feel like building trust in this industry is really important. So I want nothing from you but to have a successful career. And if you want to sign with the best music company, that's great. But if not, I just want you to have the knowledge to have a successful career.
100%. Well, thank you so much again, Steve. Everybody, Steve Weatherby, Broke Artist Nation collab. A lot of good stuff. We will put his information in the caption, in the bio on the website, so you will be able to find him.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Katie.
Yep.
Appreciate it.